flavor in your ear.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Last night, Donald Trump in prime time on national television and without hesitation told the American people that he plans to rule as a dictator on day one. Now, this admission is exactly what Democrats and others, including Republican Liz Cheney, have been warning the American people about for years. And in breaking news today, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a Republican of California, who made history as the first speaker to be ousted from the post, announced today that he would leave the House at the end of the year, but said he planned to remain engaged in Republican politics. Federal prosecutors yesterday accused former President Donald Trump of a long pattern of lying about elections and encouraging violence, saying he sent supporters to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, to criminally block the election results in a new court filing. Now, this is a court filing filed by Special Counsel Jack Smith. The filing went even further than that one filed by Smith in August, in the August indictment, where he said that Trump attempted to incite a riot. In a legal settlement today, the 10 Republicans who signed official-looking paperwork falsely purporting that Donald Trump won Wisconsin in 2020 have agreed to withdraw their inaccurate filings, acknowledge Joe Biden won the presidency, and not serve as presidential electors in 2024 or in any election where Trump is on the ballot. The fate of U.S. security assistance to Ukraine rests on the ability to lawmakers to broker a deal on an issue that has eluded their grasp for decades, and that issue is immigration. Republicans blocked a bill today on the Senate floor that would have provided billions of dollars in aid to the Ukraine because it failed to address what they believe to be significant immigration and border security issues. The latest version of a groundbreaking African-American studies course for the nation's high schools says students should learn about professional football quarterback Colin Kaepernick and his decision in 2016 to kneel during the national anthem as a protest against racial oppression and police brutality. The Biden administration will further delay a long-awaited ban on menthol cigarettes after fierce lobbying from critics who warned that a prohibition could anger some Black smokers who favor the products and could hurt President Biden's re-election prospects. President Biden said yesterday that he might not even be running for office this term if former President Donald Trump had not launched his own campaign for the White House. In the meantime, Biden has sought to frame Trump's candidacy as an existential threat to the country. He has said Trump and what he calls MAGA Republicans are seeking to dismantle U.S. democracy and eliminate many of Americans' fundamental rights. And a newly released Harvard Youth poll found that fewer voters under 30 plan to vote in the 2024 presidential election than they did at this point in the 2020 election cycle, with the largest declines in planned participation among young Republicans and independents. Among young Republicans, 56% say they definitely plan to vote in 2024. Now, this is a 10-point drop from the 66% in the fall of 2019. Martin in real time. I'm the host of Reva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Reva Martin in real time. This is the hour where we bring you the big news, the big impact news, and the stories that have people talking. And today, if you are a political junkie or a news junkie or someone that just likes to keep up with current events, you know that tonight is the 4th GOP presidential debate. And like all of the other debates, Donald Trump, the front runner for the GOP party, is not participating in tonight's debate. As his own programming, and that kind of programming happens to be a fundraiser. Donald Trump has said, why do I need to show up at debates with basically these losers, calling the 4 candidates who will be on that stage tonight as losers? Not uncommon for Donald Trump to criticize and malign his opposition. But tonight, those 4 remaining Republicans, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Vivek Ramaswamy, will be vying for what some say are the second spot. And we know there is no second position as it relates to the presidential campaign or presidential campaign. The person who comes in second isn't automatically on the ticket. They're not going to automatically be the vice president. It doesn't happen that way. Whoever is number 1 gets to decide who their number 2 will be. So in many ways, tonight's debate is going to be interesting because some folks say there's not a whole lot at stake. However, there is this chance, this not likely, but probability, or slight probability, I should say, that Donald Trump might falter, that he may end up convicted of serious felonies, that he might actually end up in some form of incarceration before the election next year, which is why we should not count out these 4 Republican candidates, because one of them might find themselves getting their number picked, their name called, or somehow having to step in to be that nominee on the GOP ticket. So that's why we're talking about this debate tonight, because we don't know what's going to happen. We've never been in this space historically where the front runner of a party has 91 criminal charges against them, or where someone as unpopular in some ways as Donald Trump is yet so popular for the GOP. In this hour, my favorite political pundits, Ed Sanders and Richard Green, are here, and they're going to help us understand why we should be watching or paying attention to tonight's debates and how to watch them and what to look for. When we come forward, Richard and Ed are going to help us break down the 4th GOP presidential debate. So don't touch that dial.
Out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union. Weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA.
We are back, and in this hour of Areva Martin in real time, we are tracking today's fourth GOP presidential debate that's happening at the University of Alabama with my two expert political pundits, Ed Sanders and Richard Green. Welcome back to both of you, and thank you for joining me on this night and helping us help the audience, my audience, make sense of this debate. Ed, some folks say, why are they debating? Donald Trump is so far ahead of all of these candidates. There's nothing they can do tonight that will improve their chances or make them the GOP nominee for president next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is early. Let's say that. I think these are made for television events. But even more particularly so, it's sort of made to showcase, the host of the debate, right? In this case, you've got three outlets: News Nation, the Washington Free Beacon. That as a new entity really is sort of new on the national stage. It's basically a website filled with opinions, less sort of the news cycle. And so as you see these candidates moving through these series of debates, to your earlier point, there's really not much new that you're learning about them. They're really not tackling the issues of a day in a substantive manner. And thus you're not really seeing movement. But all in all, it's good television theater at this point.
So, Richard, let's talk about a little side issue that I've become interested in. So the debates are happening at the University of Alabama, and Ron DeSantis is seething. He's angry for all kinds of reasons, but particularly because his undefeated football team was not selected for the college football playoff. And the Alabama Crimson Tide, whose team had a 12-1 record, was not unbeaten like the Florida team, was put in the playoffs. And some folks believe this, has something to do with the playoffs being aired on ESPN being owned by Disney. And this is Disney's way of, slapping back Ron DeSantis because of, all the beef that DeSantis and Disney have. What do you make of this little side story that's happening? And what is Ron DeSantis likely to say on that stage tonight in light of this, kind of side issue that has arisen?
You know what? I don't know, but it kind of makes the statement that this debate is really not relevant, that any side issue would somehow become more important than choosing the potential next president of the United States. But I think that the lesson in all of this is don't mess with Mickey Mouse. And I just honestly, I don't know what Ron can do or say at this point. He does, I think you're totally right. He does seem to be upset about so many things. When I tuned in on the debate, he and Nikki Haley were going after each other, and I suspect that's what's going to happen. But on the larger issue, I do think this is not an insignificant debate. I believe that either Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis has a significantly more than zero chance of being the nominee for the Republican Party. As Ed said, it's still early. There's a lot of time for things to happen.
No doubt about that. And clearly, if you're running for president, you want to run as long as your money and your support allows you to run. So there'd be no reason for these four folks not to show up at every debate that they're given an opportunity to participate in. But I kind of want to go back to my football side story here, Ed, because Donald Trump didn't waste any time in trolling Ron DeSantis and blaming Ron DeSantis, although he was critical of the decision of the college, playoff commission, or whoever made that decision to exclude Florida State and to select the Crimson team from Alabama over them. But Trump wrote on Truth Social, they being Florida State, the first Power 5 team to be left out of the college football playoffs. Really bad lobbying effort. Let's blame the sanctimonious with 3 exclamation points. So, Ed, football is important in states like Florida and Alabama, and these teams being in the playoffs, that might be like snow on the streets in Chicago, right?
I love it. I'm a big college football fan. So, and I am part of the group in the country that shares the outrage that Florida State was not included. I think Trump played it beautifully in his trolling of DeSantis, because, it really is this story of a backroom deal, right? The college football committee gets together and ultimately they decide, and they will change the rules to see fit as they can in order to get the best ratings for the television show. But Trump is right. It is a relationship, a conversation, a political act to get into the college football playoffs, and take a shot at the governor of Florida for not being able to get his team in. I do love that. I'd be shocked if they didn't troll yet another college football coach in the news, and the Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, caved on his military stance this week. He had been holding back a lot of the appointments in the military, and before he became a senator, he was a college football coach at Auburn as well. So college football playing a big role in Republican news this week.
Well, I'm going to give myself a big pat on the back because I know nothing about college football. And I literally read that story like 3 minutes ago. And based on what you just said, I think I got it right. So, and I know nothing about college football. And I had 3 minutes to read it and digest it and make sure, I was on the right side. It looks like I at least I was in the football field. I'll put it like that. But so thank you, Ed. Back to the debate, Richard. Nikki Haley is having a moment, right? She got a big endorsement. She got money with the endorsement. She even got a big influx of cash, or maybe to a super PAC that supports her, from the owner or former owner of LinkedIn, who's typically a Democratic supporter. And I thought that was about, trying to boost her up so that she could obviously be the nominee and not Donald Trump. So play out for us tonight, Richard, what you think Nikki needs to do to be the declared winner of tonight's debate.
I have always been saying that Nikki Haley was the person that I thought would emerge from this, that she was an incredibly skilled politician, that she has the credibility of having been a governor, that she has the credibility of having been the UN ambassador, and having 1 foot in Trump land, being appointed by Trump, and 1 foot in somewhat normal human land. So I think she is ultimately going to, just by being herself, by being tough, by standing up to Ron DeSantis, which is what I saw when I was able to click on for a minute. And I honestly believe that Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie are meaningless at this point. This entire race now is between DeSantis and Haley. And the most important thing is either one of them need to pray and hope that something happens to Donald Trump, because otherwise, as you said, second place doesn't mean anything, and none of them are going to be his VP pick.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, the irrelevance of Chris Christie and Ramaswamy. Ed, there is some pressure being put on Chris Christie by Republican experts and pundits and strategists for him to drop out. Some say so that he can support Nikki Haley. I don't know how much support he could give her, but I question whether that pressure is being put on him because they want him out of the spotlight because he keeps criticizing Donald Trump. Nikki Haley tried, reports are that she's going negative on Trump, but what she's saying about Trump is still pretty mild compared to what Chris Christie has said. What's your take on why the pressure on Chris Christie to drop out?
First things first, I don't know how much pressure, I would put that in air quotes. Simply, I don't believe Chris Christie to be that much of a threat to Nikki Haley, even in sort of the totals. I think he's pulling sort of an ancillary number of votes. I don't know why he'd drop out. I mean, first off, I think he occupies a space in the race that Nikki Haley actually needs, which is to go after Donald Trump on just about every issue. And Chris Christie has shown that he's willing to do that. I don't know that he's in the race to win or even gather votes. He's in there to be an attack dog against Donald Trump. So, the pressure to get out, I don't know who that would be coming from or why, frankly.
No, you raise a really good point. If anything, he does help Nikki Haley because he goes hard on Trump in a way that she doesn't. Go ahead, Richard. You want to jump in?
Yeah, but it's all, I agree with what Ed said. So right now, according to 538, Chris Christie is polling at 2.9%. If you that's you just are meaningless, right?
Right.
But if you did add that to Nikki Haley, who has 10.5%, you're now at 12. What is that? 12. Yeah, you're right up there above, a tiny bit above Ron DeSantis. So, but it's meaningless. I mean, not if you added everyone Richard, together.
Hold on a second, Richard. You're assuming that 2.9 all are folks who favor Nikki Haley, and that's not likely to be the case.
Of course not. So it's meaningless. Best case scenario, it's meaningless. Donald Trump at this point is 59.8% at 538. That is, I've never seen numbers like that. Have you, Ed?
No, not with, credible candidates in a primary race, right? I mean, maybe I can't remember what Gary Hart was looking like back in the day, but maybe there. But I doubt it. That's a really heavy lead for a nominee on the Democratic side.
And the truth is, have you ever, either one of you, spoken to a Donald Trump supporter who was wishy-washy about his or her support? I mean, they're not going anywhere.
No, they're all firm. And what I think you raise is what Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis struggle to do, right? Their message doesn't ignite the Republican base. I mean, this is a party that, for the most part, represents wealthy white Americans and is able to pull middle class thought along with them. But that group is upset, and neither Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis have been able to sort of put their thumb on the why they're upset or what it is going to take to get their support. And without being able to do that, you won't see them bump in the polls.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real issue, is that Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, nobody can play the grievance politics like Donald Trump, although Ron DeSantis tries to do that, and he's tried to occupy that lane. But the reality is the folks that want Donald Trump want Donald Trump. They don't need an impersonator in the person of Ron DeSantis. Let me ask both of you this. Liz Cheney, prominent Republican, some would call her Republican royalty, came out with a book yesterday. She's been making her rounds on cable news, doing interviews, is flirting with the idea of a third-party candidacy herself, but says she's going to do everything in her power to warn us, the name of her book is even a warning, about Donald Trump being a dictator and how he would destroy democracy. Does Liz Cheney, Richard, move the needle in any way? Any of those MAGA voters, or maybe even independent voters who are wobblers? Does listening to all of the dirt that Liz Cheney tells in that book, will that have any impact on this election?
It absolutely will have zero impact on the primary, because if Trump stays alive, if he stays healthy, if he stays out of jail, he's the nominee, right? So unless Liz Cheney can affect one of those other three things, that's not going to affect the primary. But I do believe that there are people who look at Liz Cheney. They may not have liked her father, but they look at her and they go, wow, this is a rational, reasonable, highly intelligent person who seems to be agreeing with a bunch of other rational, highly intelligent people. Maybe I need to be a little more careful about my instinct to go with Donald Trump because I hate Joe Biden. Maybe, I need to listen more to Liz Cheney. Maybe I need to read her book. Maybe I need to watch her interview with Rachel Maddow. I love that Liz Cheney is out there, and I think she could, in fact, help. Again, remember, as I say every time, Donald Trump lost the 2020 election by 42,900 votes. So tiny, tiny bits of influence with having people be rational could make all the difference in this election.
When we come forward, I want to talk about Joe Biden's pronouncement that he wouldn't even be running for a second term, but for the fact that Donald Trump launched his campaign for the White House again. And we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis, the campaign that was supposed to be the one that would replace Donald Trump has been on a downward spiral from day one and seems to be getting worse rather than better. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to the Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on the Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, dog?
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources.
We are back, and in this hour, Ed Sanders and Richard Green are joining me, and we are tracking the fourth presidential debate on the GOP side. It's happening right now at the University of Alabama, and here are some of the things that have happened. If you've not been glued to your television set, well, Ramaswamy brings up a reference to the Bridgegate scandal and then tells Chris Christie to go eat a nice meal. Christie points his finger at Ramaswamy, raises his voice, and calls him the most obnoxious blowhard in America. Nikki Haley says that she does not think it's time to bomb Iran, but says that the Biden administration has been too accommodating of the Iranians by weakening sanctions and releasing funds to secure the return of American prisoners. Now, one of the things that's happening, the moderators are having a very difficult time getting any of these candidates to give specifics. And this is the fourth debate. So folks are tired of the talking points. They want to know what they will do if president on some of these tough issues. And one of the tough issues has to do with the hostages taken by Hamas. So Christie scolds DeSantis for failing to answer a question about whether he would send in troops to save hostages held by Hamas. Christie says unequivocally that he would. And again, we have Chris Christie being attacked in some ways by the moderator, saying, why are you running if the party doesn't like you? And Chris Christie says what he always says is, I'm here to tell the truth about Donald Trump. I'm the only one that will tell you that he is dangerous for the party. And then here's one comment that I thought, again, so much gaslighting happening. Vivek Ramaswamy says that we are marching towards fascism under Joe Biden. And then he calls Nikki Haley a fascist, at which point he draws boos, which he should, from this crowd. So there you have it. Richard, that's kind of a recap of what's happened to date. Not a whole lot, obviously, but let's talk about some of these big issues like the Israel crisis that's happening. Hamas has freed some of the hostages. There are over 100 still being held. This daily bombardment from Israel on Gaza, and Biden losing popularity amongst Democrats on this issue of how he's treating Israel and embracing them. So what do you expect to hear, if we ever could get an answer from one of these GOP candidates, on how they would handle this crisis?
I'm still reeling from what you told me that Chris Christie said about going in to get the hostages by U.S. military force. I've never heard that come up in conversation. Have you?
I have not heard that, but obviously there are folks that believe that there should be a more aggressive effort on the part of either Israel or some other entity, i.e. the U.S., to free those hostages. We know that the Israelis have been incredibly critical of Netanyahu, or the prime minister, Netanyahu.
You can call him Bibi.
Yes.
That's
Bibi, yes, very critical. They had a heated meeting, I think it was just yesterday, shouting match because family members in Israel are upset with his handling of this crisis. Obviously, this is probably way too complex for anyone on that stage, perhaps other than Nikki Haley, who has been a UN ambassador. But what can Vivek Ramaswamy really say that's credible about how he would handle a crisis of this magnitude?
Now, I don't think he has the ability to say anything that is to be respected or listened to. I mean, I do agree. I mean, I find him incredibly entertaining, and he's extraordinarily talented, but he is the biggest buffoon I think I've ever seen on a presidential political debate stage. But I just have to tell you, on the Israeli issue, I came from an event here in LA with a bunch of relatives of Israeli hostages, and it's really serious. It's a really big thing. I mean, these people, one guy said that they had never, it's now been almost 60 days. They haven't seen the light of day in 60 days. Can you imagine what that would be like? But I think the only way to get the hostages out is not for the U.S. or anybody else to go in, but it is to have the world community somehow put pressure on Hamas to do that. But that's a whole other issue. Ed, I don't know. What do you think about all of this?
I mean, it's interesting in the context of the Republican debate. I think, Areva, your point was that none of these questions are do anything more than elicit sort of one-liners back. This is a rather serious issue for the country. We are really looking at, and for this is a party that has literally blocked the debt ceiling increase over the last 10 years. And every time something comes up on the debt ceiling, the Republican Party has been there to block it and demand that we scale down. The national debt is too high, too high, too high. And global conflicts are rather expensive, right? You look at the cost of this country with Afghanistan and the cost of the country with the conflict in Iraq. Our grandkids are going to be paying for that. And, that's a legitimate question for the country to be weighing. And, the point about this is that there's a real serious issue here, and no one is really talking about it in terms that the American voter can really evaluate. It's just sort of one-liners and that sort of thing. So somewhat disappointing, particularly from, these presidential candidates and in this case, Nikki Haley, who has, sort of the global context of what military conflict costs this country.
Areva, actually, I have some really deep concerns because what Ed said, I think, is a position that
certain parts of this conflict in particular. And nobody talking about Donald Trump saying he would ban all Muslims, that he would make Muslims in this country now do some kind of loyalty test. All of these extreme positions by Donald Trump. And we know Donald Trump is very much an extremist like Bibi. And nobody really questioning what this country would look like under a Donald Trump dictatorship, which he told Sean Hannity last night that on day one he would be a dictator. But yet Vivek Ramaswamy trying to gaslight the country, gaslight all of us by suggesting that Joe Biden is somehow a dictator and that if Nikki Haley is elected, she would be a dictator, but not making any comment about Donald Trump, who said out of his very own mouth on national television that he would, in fact, be a dictator. What do you make of that, Richard?
So I just want to go back and clarify that I believe that the war in Israel and what the Republican Party is doing by blocking funds to go to Ukraine and to Israel is really helping Donald Trump. I am very concerned about Democratic voters of color who are very sympathetic with the Palestinians staying home in key swing states, especially like Michigan. And I also believe that the average American does not disagree with what Ed said and does not disagree with the Republican position that, hey, we're way in debt. If we're going to spend money, let's spend it at home. Let's not give it to Israel. Let's not, especially with what they're doing, let's not give it to the Ukraine, military. So I'm concerned by all of this.
And all of it is very concerning. And you are right. The Democratic Party is very split. I don't think anyone is. And I think the Democratic Party is clear. They condemn what Hamas did. They condemn the attack. They empathize with the individuals who were killed in Israel. They want the hostages released. They want a humane resolution to this crisis. And they are growing weary, I think, with the way the country is handling this. I'm not so convinced, and when we come forward, we'll talk about this, that the Republicans will get credit, though, by Democratic voters or young voters on this issue of blocking aid. And when we come forward, I also want to talk about this new poll out that says that young voters are not likely to vote at the same level that they voted in the last presidential election. And the majority of these young voters are Republican young voters. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your beer. Keep following the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union. Weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join.
We're back and we're tracking the fourth presidential GOP debate that's happening right now on the campus of the University of Alabama. We're going to talk about this new poll out about young voters, particularly young Republican voters. But before we do that, Ed, I do want to ask you about what we were talking about in terms of the Senate Republicans today blocked a bill that would have provided aid to the Ukraine and to Israel because it did not contain language and provisions that they wanted to address the immigration crisis or issue that exists in America, according to the Republicans. So, we heard Richard say he's concerned that the Democrats may pay a price for that. What are you thinking about the, refusal of Republicans to move forward on an aid package to the Ukraine and to Israel? Who benefits the most, Democrats or Republicans, from that?
I think Republicans. Look, where they can show Biden as being weak, and in this case, not being able to deliver aid to, allies, you paint the picture that this president is not strong enough to lead on the global stage. We all know it's the Republicans in the Senate that have that are holding that back. And but publicly, I think this does more damage to Biden.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the jury is still out on that, particularly amongst a certain class of voters who are clamoring for that aid to be provided at least to Israel. So we'll see what happens with that and how long both the Senate and House holds out its vote for that aid and ties this aid to this huge immigration issue. We know we haven't had immigration legislation in this country in over a decade. So this notion that somehow we're going to, address our immigration crisis through an aid package, I'm not so sure that the Republicans win on that.
Yeah, ultimately, look, from a Ukraine perspective, Biden has not been a strong communicator. And so this issue of why the United States should, be committing its treasure in support of the Ukraine, really, frankly, is not moving the needle. It's just, it just isn't. And this is a president who was vice president under, Barack, who was charged with getting us out of Afghanistan and out of Iraq. It's strange that he's been unable to articulate a real cause or reason for the U.S. to be, overseas like this. And it allows the Republicans to just hold him back. He's not strong enough to get it done.
Yeah,
Well,
obviously, the Ukraine issue is very, very unpopular, and lots of folks, as you said, don't really understand how important it is to support an ally like Ukraine. But I do want to move on before we run out of time, Richard. I know young voters. You and I have talked ad nauseum about young voters. New poll out today that says young voters are less likely to vote in the upcoming presidential election than they are or than they did in the last presidential election. And they really highlight Republican youth voters or young voters as being particularly disenchanted with their own party. What do you make of that? Because we're always focused, I think you and I at least, on Democratic young voters. But this poll really spotlights how out of touch the Republican Party is with its young voters, and many of whom were on that campus at the University of Alabama at that debate tonight.
Well, I did a little happy dance when I saw that it was mainly coming from young Republicans. And I don't know. I have to look at the analysis of that. But again, I think we're still a ways away. I think the election is going to come into much greater focus after we choose the nominees and we really see what's happening, and after we choose the vice presidential nominees. But I just want to circle back on that last thing. A poll that was conducted in August showed that 55% of Americans think that Congress should not authorize additional funding to support Ukraine. So the Democratic Party, which is on the right side of what most Americans want almost all the time, are on the wrong side on this one. So that's why I'm not that upset about it not going forward at this point from an electoral standpoint. In terms of young people, wow, did you see anything about why? Because that seems like to be a very significant statistic.
I did not see in that poll, but I did read a New York Times article today that said young Republicans don't see their party. They don't see themselves reflected in their party. They think the party's too old. They think it's too white. They think it's too male. And they think that they are not paying close enough attention to the issues that motivate young Republicans, who are mostly young white people. And they said their top issue is the economy. And they are worried that they're going to graduate from college and not have jobs. And they're not convinced that the Republicans are, as you typically will hear folks say, doing a better job on the economy or will do a better job on the economy. So that's what this New York Times article talked about. Ed, I don't know if you have any insights into why the young Republicans in particular are disillusioned with their party.
To me, it's a snapshot in time. I mean, those young Republicans will grow older, and as they start to marry and get in careers and have children, they will become more conservative. And I would think that group is actually, there are more young Republicans out there, and they are increasingly more and more conservative. I think it's just a matter of time before they get engaged. What I think the Republican Party has always been able to do is use particularly African Americans as a reason to engage its base. This is a party that will throw out being anti-woke, and you can go back to sort of the Willie Horton days with, when Bush's campaign. The Republican Party are masters at this, and they will figure out ways to anger young white Republicans and turn their anger against minorities, and that will get them engaged. It's a playbook that they've run for decades, and they'll continue to do it.
So I agree with Areva. Sorry, I agree with Ed about that. But again, enter Nikki Haley, because you said the Republican Party is too old, it's too white, and it's too male. Nikki is none of those three things. And I think if she does become the nominee or play a central role in this campaign, that's going to help the Republicans a lot.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. Nikki Haley uses her status as a woman of color to her advantage when it is to her advantage. Otherwise, Nikki Haley, in many ways, makes herself a white proximate. So it'll be interesting to see if she wants to lean into her status as a woman of color, because we've seen her all too often not do that. And do the I pull myself up by the bootstraps. I'm not like those other unspoken word, lazy minorities. So it'll be interesting to see if she thinks that's to her advantage or not, because to be accepted and liked by white women who she would need to be successful, playing into her woman of color status may not be to her advantage, or she may perceive it not to be. So, race is always tricky. And we know that one thing that all folks in this country pretty much hate are black folks or brown folks. The anti-blackness in this country is real. And it shows itself up. It shows up in the way, like Ed just talked about, in campaigns, sometimes in overt ways, i.e. Donald Trump, or in more subtle ways. So it'll be interesting. I'm not so convinced, Richard, that Nikki Haley wants the mantle of woman of color, except if she thinks it's going to get her some votes.
I agree. But she's very good at straddling the line. And I think she's super skilled. She's been supporting Trump and not supporting Trump. She's going to be white. She's going to be, black. She's going to be whatever she is to get her votes.
All right. We got 2 minutes left. Ed, tell our viewers something about this debate that they should be watching for.
I think our viewers, KBLA and have a mindset that when you watch these presidential debates, you got to look at it from perspective what's right for the community. In this, I don't think you hear any policies being talked about that would improve life for African Americans in this country.
Well said, well said. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you, Richard. Always a pleasure to spend time with both of you. Great insights and analysis as usual. I don't know, folks. Watch the debates, not watch the debates. As Ed just said, not likely to be much there for you other than entertainment. And there is going to be lots of entertainment with those one-liners. Not much in terms of substance, but, News Nation is hoping for some kind of ratings boost. It's a very, small cable network, not a lot of viewers. And they're hoping that this might be a ratings juggernaut for it. Again, not likely to be, but, even if they get 1 million viewers, that's not their typical crowd on a given night. So we'll see what happens. There'll be lots of analysis throughout the night and tomorrow. Next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers and the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Don't touch that dial.
Definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA